Hello everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of Journey Through Norse Mythology. Today we'll be tackling the topic of how Odin mastered the runes and their power. But before we delve into that story, let's have a quick introduction about what the runes actually were. The runes were the first system of written language made by the Proto-Germanic peoples, and just as any letters, they were of course part of an alphabet. A runic alphabet is called a futhark, and today we recognize 3 different fully developed futharks. The very first futhark was formed between the 1st and 4th century AD by the Proto-Germanic peoples, and it contained 24 runic symbols. This futhark is the first fully developed runic alphabet known to us, so it's therefore called the Elder Futhark. In the following centuries, the usage of Elder Futharks spread to other Germanic tribes, but as many more groups came to adopt it, and their languages and dialects changed over time, the runic alphabet was being modified to better suit the vocal changes in the evolving languages. Now we already know that the migration of nations caused many of the Germanic peoples to scatter all over Europe, and this was the reason for the emergence of the 2 other runic alphabets in the centuries to come. The Anglo-Saxon futhark, as the name suggests, was a runic alphabet used by the Anglo-Saxon tribes that settled on the island of Great Britain. The Anglo and Saxon tribes that came from the mainland during the 5th century brought the Elder Futhark with them, and in time modified it to better fit with the new spoken dialect of the Anglo-Saxons, the Old English. To accommodate for the changes in pronunciation and sound of the new language, some runes of the Elder Futhark were not only adjusted, but several new letters were added, leaving the Anglo-Saxon futhark with 33 letters in total. Lastly, there is the so-called Younger Futhark, and it was a slightly transformed version of the Elder Futhark that started to take shape in Scandinavia at the beginning of the Viking Age, and during its course it came to slowly replace the older runic alphabet. There were 2 major variations of the Younger Futhark, namely the Danish and the Swedish Norwegian. These futharks, compared to their predecessor, only contained 16 letters, and so as a consequence of this reduction, some of the letters came to stand for multiple vocal sounds. The runes didn't serve just as letters, however, but each one also carried some spiritual and magical significance. I will give you some examples here from the Elder Futhark, but bear in mind we have no concrete account of the pronunciation of these runes, and the pronunciation I will be using has been reconstructed from the relation between Old English and Old Norse and their respective futharks I've mentioned. So let's see some examples. The rune Tiwaz, which corresponds to the letter T, was the rune of the leader of the Proto-Germanic pantheon of gods, who we know in Norse mythology as Tyr, and his rune symbolized such attributes as honor, justice, and victory. The rune Hagalaz, which corresponds to the letter H, means hail, as in the unpleasant torrent of rain. It also carries the meaning of destruction and chaos, possibly because of the fact that harsh rains are quite disastrous to crops. The rune Thursaz would stand for the th sound in the words like thorn, thrall, or thick. Note that the th sound is not written as a combination of the previous runes that stand for the letters T and H, but it is its own rune. This rune means giant, as in the enemy of the gods, and understandably, it also stands for danger. You can expect a video in the future that will delve deeper into the nature and meaning of each rune, but this quick summary will have to suffice us for now. So, from these few examples, we could see that the runes were not just mere carriers of the spoken word, but also expressions of the forces of nature and the supernatural powers of the cosmos. They could be used for all manner of blessings or hexes, from providing protection in battle to casting a curse upon someone. Now with all that out of the way, let's look at the story of how Odin learned the runes. First thing I need to state is that the tale of how Odin learned the runes is mostly lost to the ages, and only bits and pieces remain of how it went. This means I will once again fill in the blanks based on my best judgment, while still sticking close to the concrete sources we have on this story. Very well then. We ended the last episode with Odin being exiled from the realm of Asgard, and so he set off to wander around the 9 worlds in his ever-going search for knowledge and wisdom. Luckily, he had his friend, Mimir, or at least his head, to accompany him, and Mimir's counsel was always available if he was in need of it. And it was from Mimir that Odin received the advice to seek the Well of Urd at the base of the World Tree. He told him of the Norns, the mistresses of fate, and the might they possessed through the runes, and the power and wisdom that was locked within these elusive signs. Odin listened to his friend and travelled there, where all the roots of the World Tree converged. He ventured through the deep mists that hid the place from sight of anyone, but after some time he came to a clearing, where many maidens went about their daily duties. Some plucked the weeds from among the many roots of the World Tree that ran through the clearing. Some watered the roots with the waters from a nearby pool, and some covered the roots in mud as to prevent them from drying out under the hot gaze of the sun. But there were 3 that stood out from the lot of them, seated by the small sparkling pool of water where all the roots converged. To clarify, there were many Norns in the Viking Age, as the term Norn was used as a synonym to a seeress or a sorceress, basically any female practitioners of Seder. But in Norse mythology there were only 3 Norns with the capital N, and those were the ones who wrote down the fates of all things living. Just to refresh our memory, quote, "There stands an ash called Yggdrasil, a mighty tree showered in white hail. From there come the dews that fall in the valleys. It stands evergreen above Urd's well. From there come maidens, very wise, free from the lake that stands beneath the pole. One is called Urd, another Verdandi, Skald the third. They carve into the tree the lives and destinies of children." End quote. Odin went on and approached these 3 maidens, who turned their pale eyes towards him once he sat down by their well.
"A visitor,"
spoke one of the Norns, the other humming in agreement.
"What is your name, and what brings you here?"
"I am Ig." Odin gave them a false name, as was his custom. "I am just a traveller, seeking refuge." The Norns hummed and chuckled in amusement, until one of them spoke.
"None can find this place unless one is determined to find it. And what deceit you bring to our company, son of Bor?"
Odin's eyes widened. "How do you know who I am?"
"We know all the children of the gods and men and giants alike. We carved their names just as we carved yours, back when the cosmos was young, when it was not but scorching fire, freezing ice and black abyss, when the World Tree was not but a seed, and when giants ruled the world. You do remember those times, don't you, Odin?"
With that, Odin knew there was no hiding behind false names and disguises. "I am not here to reminisce about the past," he retorted.
"No, you are here to learn the secrets of the runes,"
one of the Norns chimed in. "How did you know that?" Odin asked in surprise.
"We don't carve just the names of all the children. We carve their fates as well, what they've done and what they will do until the day they die."
Odin frowned in disbelief. "None have such power." The Norns grinned widely and giggled.
"You are free to believe whatever you wish. It does not change the truth."
She motioned to the pool of water between them.
"Look into the water. What do you see?"
Odin proceeded to lean over the well and squinted his eyes, but nothing peculiar caught his eye. "I don't see anything." The Norns hummed in amusement once more.
"If you seek the runes, you have a long way to go, Ig. Stay as long as you like. The runes aren't going anywhere."
And that was just what Odin did. For a long time he pondered about what the Norns told him, and stared into the sparkling waters of the Well of Urd for hours on end, trying to figure out what significance it held in learning the secrets of the runes. Alas, after days of thinking, no coherent answer came to him, and the god smacked his hand against the surface of the water, irritated by the reflection he had been staring at for so long in vain. It was at times like these he envied the mortals of Midgard, who needed only to make a sacrifice to him, and he would aid them with whatever they required. Suddenly, an epiphany struck him, and with an idea in his mind, he looked back at the once again calm waters of the pool, where he now spotted something that had been staring him in the face the whole time, yet what he was too oblivious to notice. And so with a smile, Odin raised his eyes to the white crown and branches of the world tree that reflected in the sparkling waters of the well. He knew what he had to do. He climbed upon one of the branches of the world tree and tied himself to it by a rope. He then took his spear and spoke out loud, "I offer this sacrifice to Odin, myself to myself. Feel my life leave my body, world tree. Feel the pain of Odin." And with that he ran the spear through his body, and with a grunt he slipped from the branch and hung on the rope over the well of Urt, gazing into his waters. Quote, "I know that I hung on a wind-battered tree 9 long nights pierced by a spear, and given to Odin myself to myself on that tree, whose roots rung in a place no one has ever seen." End quote. And it was so indeed. For 9 long days and nights Odin hanged on the branch of the world tree, bleeding his life away. None gave him food nor a drink of water, and he would not have accepted any even if someone had offered it. But at the end of the 9th night, it was too much suffering for even a god to endure, and with a last breath, life left Odin's body. At that moment his spirit had been thrown into hell, where resided all those who had passed away. For a small while, all the secrets of the dead laid in front of Odin, ripe for the taking, if he would only let go of his life, but it would not be Odin to give up when he was so close to what he came for. With a deep breath he woke again, and looked down into the well that now danced with bright light, and he saw them. Runes, carved all over the trunk of the world tree and reflecting in the sparkling waters of the well. Odin reached out for the reflection of that which he so desired, and at that moment the secret magic of the runes was revealed to him. In that moment he learned 18 runic spells for protection and success in battle, for healing and lovemaking, and even the power to bring back the dead. Finally succeeding in his goal, the shock and pain was too much, and Odin fell from the world tree with a loud cry. Quote, "No one gave me food, no one gave me drink. At the end I peered down, I took the runes, screaming I took them, and then I fell." End quote. And with the spells burned in his mind, Odin left, yet what had transpired by the well of Urt would be known throughout the cosmos. In my video about Yggdrasil and the 9 worlds of Norse mythology, I falsely presumed that the world tree got its name because Odin used its branches to travel all over the 9 worlds. However, since then I found out that a more likely reason for the tree's name is that it's a sort of a mockery of Odin, as he quote-unquote rode the branch of the world tree when he hung from it for those 9 nights and days. To bring this video to an end, it is also important to say that Odin taught the runes to multiple characters, presumably dwarves, both as a system of writing and protective charms, and these dwarves in turn taught it to other races in the cosmos. Quote, "You will find runes, runic letters to read, very great runes, very powerful runes, which Odin painted and carved. Odin carved for the gods, and Dane for the elves, Dwalin for the dwarves, and Aswich for the giants, and for the sons of men I carved some myself." End quote. Even though the names Dane and Dwalin are mentioned as the names of the 2 of the 4 hearts that nibble at the branches of Yggdrasil, they are also distinctly mentioned as being the names of dwarves, So this once again is an area where the sources contradict each other, and there is no real telling which is correct, if either. Aswich is thought to be synonymous with a dwarf named Alvis, who, even though we know is a dwarf, we still can't confirm is the same character. However, if all these characters mentioned are indeed dwarves, it would make for a nice speculation as to why Odin entrusted solely the dwarves with the knowledge of the runes. That is a speculation for another time. In the next video, we will take a closer look at the 18 runic spells that Odin learned and discover just what they are really about. But this would be all for today, and I bid you all farewell. Until next time.